Welcome to episode 1 of Real Food, Real Budget Meal Prep. Every week I prep food for my family so that we can live a lifestyle that is minimal in chemicals, processed seed oils, and refined sugars. So in order to avoid those things, I need to prep some food for my family, and this also saves money so that we do not actually need to buy certain processed or more processed foods at the grocery store. So every Sunday, I'm gonna be bringing you this entire meal prep so that we can share this joy and journey together, and hopefully I can bring you some inspiration. Today, I'm gonna be sharing sweet potato brownies, cottage cheese breakfast muffins, homemade chicken nuggets, high protein cookie dough balls, and protein granola. I'm actually gonna be cooking these sweet potato brownies first, but I got this massive bag of mushrooms on clearance, and I thought this would be perfect to make for our egg bites. So we're gonna do spinach and mushroom egg bites. This is probably more mushrooms than I need, but because were already on clearance, I'm just gonna cook them all up now. Mushrooms are incredible. I love them. So I will probably eat them on salads and on toast. They're also a great filler if you're gonna make something with ground beef. You can chop them up really small and add them to your ground beef, and that's gonna add a ton of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. I need to cook these up before I can put them into the egg bites. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is actually slice these up and get them on the stove so that they can cook while I mix the brownies, and that way they'll be ready when it's time to make the egg bites. So while those mushrooms cook, we're just gonna mix up our brownies. So I boiled 3 medium-sized sweet potatoes earlier, and then I let them cool. And the nice thing about that is you can just kind of cut down the middle there, and the inside of the sweet potato will kind of just fall right out. Now I'm just gonna mash the sweet potato and then add in 1 cup of almond butter. You could also use peanut butter, really whatever nut butter you prefer. 2 eggs, 2/3 a cup of honey, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then once that's all mixed together, I'm now just mixing in 2/3 a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, a 1/2 cup of vanilla protein powder, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And just mix that up until smooth. Now I'm gonna add in 1 cup of chocolate chips. I like to use the Hu baking chips. These are a paleo chocolate. There's only 3 ingredients. They're really nice. And you can see that when we're making this ends up actually being a flour-free recipe, but oh my goodness, these are gonna be so delicious when they come out. So I'm just gonna pour this into a lined 9x9 pan. So I put some parchment paper in the bottom of the pan. Then I'm just gonna sprinkle on a few more chocolate chips to make it look pretty, and a sprinkle of Malden sea salt because that just makes everything better. And into the oven we go for
35 minutes
at 350 degrees. While those cook, I'm gonna make some egg bites. And for all the recipes, I actually just use my app. And the recipes are in a meal plan in here. So when you join the Meals with Maria Plus app, you can go to meal plans, and you're gonna see this entire meal prep so that you can just print the recipes, and you'll even get a shopping list to go with it too. I'm actually just using the recipes right on my computer, which is also an option. And we're making the homemade Starbucks bites. These ones are the ones with spinach and mushrooms. I'm just going to microwave 1/2 of this bag of spinach according to package instructions. And while that's microwaving, I'm just gonna mix 1 cup of cottage cheese with 8 eggs inside my NutriBullet. And I'm gonna do that 2 times over because I'm actually gonna make double the recipe. Once that's ready, we're gonna add a little salt and pepper to it and add it to muffin pans, spray it down with whatever your favorite thing to use is. I'm gonna use my olive oil sprayer here. This is just a hand sprayer, so I can just add my own olive oil. Then pour in the eggs evenly, and then 1/2 of them I'm gonna do with just spinach, and the other 1/2 I'm gonna do with spinach and mushroom. And we're also gonna add about a tablespoon of freshly grated raw cheddar cheese as well. You can use whatever your favorite type is. I really enjoy this grass milk, 100% certified grass-fed raw cheddar cheese. It tastes delicious. It's been aged for 6 months. It's so good for you. So the cool thing about these is you can literally make anything out of them. We're gonna bake them at 350 degrees for 20 minutes, and they should be perfectly cooked. If you leave them in the oven for a few minutes afterwards, like turn the oven off, leave them in there, they tend to stay a little bit more puffed up, but you will see a reduction in size. They always kind of deflate a little bit, and that's just kind of how eggs work.
And right after those eggs went in the oven, the brownies were done, so I took those out to cool. And then I also packed up my mushrooms so that I could put those in the fridge for later.
And this isn't a ton of spinach left, it's dropping, but this is great for an omelet or like eggs tomorrow morning. So I'm just gonna throw this in a container and I will put in my eggs with the mushrooms tomorrow morning and it's gonna be delicious. Although I'll have egg bites. That's the way my brain works. I guess I'll eat the egg bites as a snack and the eggs as a breakfast. The egg bites also freeze really well. So because I'm making a double batch, I can freeze up half of them and then save them for times when we're busy. That way we have something on the go whenever we need it. Okay, we are huge fans of protein granola over here, and I can go through an entire container of it in 1 week in this family. I've also found that we really like to put those huge chocolate chips in just like a little bowl as a little snack. It is perfection. It gives me like those vibes of the Quaker chewy granola bar, but just in a little like snack, almost like if you want to like snack on chips, do protein granola and little chocolate chips and you will be pleasantly surprised that you get like that crunch that you're looking for, but also that sweet and salty treat. So this is all we need to make the granola. It is super easy. I'm gonna make a double batch because that's usually what I do. We're gonna do 4 cups of rolled oats, 2/3 a cup of peanut butter, a half a cup of maple syrup, and 1 cup of vanilla protein powder. Mix it well, and then we're gonna lay it on 2 baking sheets as evenly as possible, and then bake at 350 degrees for 15 minutes. Then we'll wait for this to cool off. If you wanna add add-ins, like you could add raisins or craisins or different types of nuts, or I've even done coconut. All those things taste delicious in this homemade granola. I personally like to leave it plain, and then again, if I like to add those chocolate chips, I will. But if we just leave it plain, it's perfect to add on top of my homemade yogurt with some fruit and some honey, or just like a little jam in there. That's also another favorite treat. So now while the granola bakes, I'm gonna make cookie dough protein balls. These are a super easy no bake recipe, and if I had more almond butter, I would be making a double or even triple the recipe because they can also freeze, so you can use them in the weeks ahead. And I always like to make more if possible, the more the better, so that you cook once and eat as much as possible. But I didn't plan properly and I only have about a cup of almond butter, so we're gonna have to go with what we have. So this recipe is super easy. We're just gonna mix a half a cup of almond flour with a half a cup of vanilla protein powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, a half a cup of maple syrup, and 1 cup of that almond butter. You can use cashew butter, you can use peanut butter, whatever nut butter that you like, a half a teaspoon of vanilla, and then a half a cup of mini chocolate chips. I like these Enjoy Life ones. Well, they do use cane sugar. They're very low ingredient, just 3 ingredients in these. They're just the perfect size for a little protein ball like this. And then I'm just gonna roll them into little dough balls, little tiny little cookie dough balls, and they're gonna be perfect little snack. I'm gonna love them. I know that my 7-year-old and my 3-year-old also enjoy these.
And I do also like to do a meal prep for my kids. So this week I did chicken nuggets, and I did do these actually a day earlier than this full meal prep, but you can totally do it with it. It just worked out that way that I needed the nuggets a little bit earlier. But my kids loved the bagged, frozen chicken nuggets. They're super easy. It's great to have them in the freezer, like I get it. And when I started to look at what the ingredients were and I wanted to avoid seed oils, I realized that all of the chicken nuggets, like all of them, are washed in vegetable oil. So in order to avoid that, I was like, you know what? Let's just figure out a recipe that they like and then make our own. And then it was my goal to figure out how to freeze them properly. So in this case, I actually did that, and that's why I really wanted to show this to you, because this is a great way to prep ahead. And then really basically you're going to have your bag, your quote bag, put mine in a glass container, but of chicken nuggets in the freezer so that you can just microwave them or pop them in the air fryer, and they're super easy for the kids for lunches, and you're going to feel good about what you made, right? So I always just grab this big 3-pack of chicken breasts, organic chicken breasts from Whole Foods. I find that that's, a pretty decent deal on organic chicken breast. And then I cut it up into basically nugget-sized pieces. And then we're going to make the marinade for it. So you do need to do this a little bit ahead of time. Really, 4 hours is the minimum pretty much for it to marinate, but you can do up to 24 hours. And I'll tell you that the longer that you do it, the absolute better that they are, because this marinade really does penetrate. I don't know. It gets into the chicken and it makes it really much better the longer that you let it sit. So in order to make the marinade, you want 2 eggs, 3/4 cup of almond milk. I use my homemade almond milk. The recipe for that is on my app, and it's amazing because it's just almonds and water. And then 3/4 cup of pickle juice. I love the Grillo's pickles because they are a really clean pickle, and some of the pickles these days actually have food dyes in them, which is wild. So that's all for the marinade. You just mix that up, and then you just put all the chicken in there. I should have had like maybe a little bit bigger of a container because this was close. It was overflowing, but it all worked out. I just put it on a plate. So, real life, these things happen. And I marinated that for 24 hours because, like I said, it's so much better when you do that. So to bread these, you want 1.5 cups of spelt flour is what I usually use, but you can also use just like organic white or wheat flour, whatever you have, it's going to be fine. A teaspoon of dried paprika, a 1/2 teaspoon of dry mustard, a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And you can add a 1/2 teaspoon of coconut sugar to this too. On this occasion, I just didn't do that, and I haven't really found too much of a difference, but you can add it. And then you just want to put those marinated pieces of chicken into that bowl. In the past, I've just done one at a time, but I realized that, you know what, you can just throw them like half of the little bowl in there and try and get them covered, and it's a lot faster and easier. And this is probably how they do it at the restaurant anyway. And then just place those onto a lined baking sheet. I like to use parchment paper for this. And then we're just going to spray them down with some olive oil spray again. This is key for making sure that they get crispy on the outside and they're not just like a floury mess. And you'll see after they come out, once they're cooked, that some parts still have like a little bit of like dry flour on them. Those are just the parts that have not been touched by that olive oil spray. And then I have done these in the air fryer before, and I do have air fryer instructions on the app. In this case, I'm going to be baking them at 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes, and you're going to flip these halfway through. You do want to make sure that you're using like a pretty solid spatula when you do flip them, and make sure you kind of get under there because sometimes that bottom layer of breading does stick to the bottom of the pan. Again, we're not using chemicals, and when you're cooking at home, sometimes it's just a little bit more difficult to do these things, but even when you lose like a layer on a couple of them, it's not a big deal. They still taste delicious. I've never had a kid notice that was missing in any of them. And then I just let them cool on that tray, and then place those trays in the freezer for 2 hours. And the nuggets froze up perfectly. So you can see how when you do this, when you freeze them this way, they freeze separately. And that way you can then take them and place them. I'm placing mine into a glass container. You could use a freezer bag if that's what you prefer. And then they are all set for you. So this is like your own homemade bag of chicken nuggets. And I feel like it's pretty simple. Like I like doing it, and they reheat really well. So in the air fryer, you can do them at 375 degrees for 6 to 8 minutes. You can do the oven at 400 for 15 minutes, and the microwave in 30-second intervals. They're not going to be as crispy that way, but it's going to depend on how your kids like them. But look at how nice this nugget is. These are so good. And then once everything else was cooled off, I just put the granola in an airtight container. These are actually from the Dollar Tree, and they're amazing to store granola and other like chip type things in. And then I sliced my brownies. You definitely want to make sure these are cool before you cut them. I cut them into 16 pieces and then placed them on a cake stand with a cover, and that way they're like available. It makes my kitchen look really cute for the kids, and it's a win. And then I also put the egg bites away. I need to get new like muffin pans. These are sticking. Unfortunately, I haven't really found like the best solution. I want to do the caraway, I think, but I need to look into it a little bit more. And then I would have loved to put these in glass containers. I just didn't have any clean ones. They were all in use. So I need to get more, but again, everything costs money. So I put them in bags. I did find that I used a lactose-free cottage cheese this time, and for some reason the egg bites were not as fluffy as usual. And that just goes with cooking. I've made these 100 times. They're usually amazing. Every once in a while, you're going to change something or try something and it's not going to be perfect. And you know what? That is okay.
Well, that's it for prep this week. All of these recipes, this entire meal prep with grocery list is in my app. Make sure to subscribe so you can hang out next week. We'll be doing more real food, real budget meal prep.